let's talk about stitching. So first and foremost, I want to talk about hand-tied wefts and why we love them. The seam is so incredibly small, so when we do sew these into the hair, we'd like to layer them. And I would say each person is going to be anywhere from 4 to 6 pieces. But as you can see, that seam is so undetectable and so tiny. So that is why hand-tied hair is so sought after, is because it really does give you an invisible wear. So when we're actually placing our wefts, I like to layer them before I place them on the head with my clips. When I'm placing them, I'm making sure that I'm pulling the wefts extremely flat, and I want to make sure that they're perfectly lined up with that front section. And I want to make sure that they stay very secure and tight to the head. So I want to make sure that there's no slipping, there's no bubbling, that there is no gaps, that everything is really tight as I'm pulling. So that way when we do add our stitching, it lays flat and it's not bulky and it doesn't have any bubbles. When you don't stitch properly, you can get kind of lumpy. So we want to make sure that we're eliminating that opportunity. So as I'm clipping these, I'm using these little gold clips, which are my absolute favorite, but I'm really making sure that I am not getting the clip stuck in my section, that I'm actually placing it on the thread where in between the bead, which is not attached to the scalp itself. So we want to make sure that we are hitting the clip on the thread and that we're not pushing it into the client's hair. And the reason why is it's very painful when we slide those clips into the sections that are in the bead. So again, I'm making sure that these are getting pulled really tight so they lay extremely flat to the head. I'm really making sure to pay attention to make sure none of my wefts are sliding down. And I want to make sure that these are secure and tight so that when I do go in for my stitching, the process is very simple and easy. Now I'm coming up to the end of my weft here. I always want to make sure to put a clip here so these areas don't slide down. These areas can be missed with stitches at times, and I just want to make sure that they stay secure, so I'm going to do 2 extra little clips. Now I'm going to go in on the other side. So you will have to do 2 sets of wefts. So we did 3 on one side and we're doing another 3 on the other because most wefts do not cover the entire head. And these are made by hand. So making sure that you understand that they're not all going to be the same length all the time because they are made by hand and they are made by an actual person. It's impossible to get them absolutely perfect every single time. So when we're doing this, we want to make sure again that we're making sure our wefts are lined up perfectly to our section. Making sure that they're lined up perfectly to match up with our section is going to definitely help with overhang, which is something we want to avoid. We want to avoid the wefts overhanging our section and leaving a flap when the front of the wefts are not secured to the actual section itself. It will stick out during the client wear. So we always want to make sure that we are making sure that those front wefts line up with the front of our section. Now we're going around. Now remember, when we're lifting these clips, we want to make sure that nothing is sliding down and everything is secure. So as you can see, I'm going in with the clip and I'm shimmying up all of the wefts that were already pre-placed to make sure that all of them are aligned. Now everything looks nice and secure. I like to put this clip forward and horizontal so that way it holds everything in place. And I'm just readjusting again to make sure everything lines up perfectly so we don't have any overhang. And now I'm going to go in with my stitching. So for this front bead, we are going to do 3 stitches through the front bead. We're going to do a stitch in front of the bead. we're going to do a stitch around the bead. It doesn't go through the bead, it just wraps around the bead. So there's no opening of the bead, it just goes around the bead. And then we're going to do a stitch behind the bead. So as you can see, I'm placing my first knot and I'm really making sure it's secure and tight so it holds that weft down very, very securely to the front of that section. Now I'm going to do my triple thread wrap. So we use nylon thread for our stitching. And the reason why we use nylon thread is because it has a very good slip. So when we're pulling it through the hair, it actually glides through, whereas the cotton has grip and can be painful if you use this for your stitching. So when we are doing our nylon thread, we have to do our thread wrap because it's what creates your locking knot. Without the thread wrap, you are going to have stitching that slides out and it's not going to be tight and secure. And your stitching needs to be tight and secure, like very tight and secure. Now, when we're doing our stitching, we're always going over the top. We're never going through the bottom. And the reason why we want to go over the top is that it's going to allow the stitching to sit on top of the weft, not in front of the weft. We don't want any stitching in the front because that can get grabbed by a comb or a brush and it can cause breaking of the actual thread itself. So now you can see we're coming up to an end of the ends of our other wefts that we wrapped around. Again, this is an area that you're going to want to put extra stitches in so these little guys don't fall out. So we want to secure them. So I will put a couple extra stitches in here as well. Again, I'm going to do my wrap around 3 times, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to pull this through. And when I'm pulling up, I'm pulling really, really tight to make sure everything locks in place and is secure. Now again, I am using a dark color thread so you can see the difference. On a client, you're going to want to use thread that matches their hair completely so it almost looks invisible. So I would never use this dark color on a real natural blonde. I'm only using this for class purposes, so please keep that in mind. Again, I'm going in and I'm doing my stitching. I'm going through the top and I'm wrapping. Now when I'm doing my stitching, I'm making sure that I'm going through the actual thread itself. Like I'm wrapping, I'm making sure that I actually am putting stitches around the thread behind the wefts because that's what's going to hold it to the hair. And I'm making sure as I go that I'm getting all of the wefts and that I'm shimming them into place. We don't want any wefts to slip down. So we're pulling it through. We're going to do our thread wrap and we're going to pull tight. Now one that is very important is you want to make sure that your needle is going straight through. You don't want it to kick to the side. You don't want it to kick to the other side. The reason why is if you do not have a 90-degree angle, like when you're going through a perfect straight through angle, it's going to cause your wefts to waterfall or push out of place. So if you see like hair that's going in a weird direction, it's because your needle didn't go straight through. You were either shifted to the left or the right. And a way to eliminate that is to make sure that you are standing directly in front of your section when you're doing your stitching. So you should be right in front of every single section. Again, I'm adjusting the wefts to make sure that everything is lined up, that everything is in place. I'm continually using a clip horizontally to keep everything aligned and keep it from sliding down. I'm holding my thread and doing my thread gap to make sure that I don't have any tangling, that, I am the one guiding the thread is not guiding me, and I'm just adjusting and moving as I go. pulling through, holding my thread so it doesn't get tangled. I'm wrapping it around 3 times, and I'm pulling up really tight. Again, if I have any loose ends, I want to put extra stitches in to make sure that I am not going to have any flaps, which would be uncomfortable for the clients, or obviously stick out, which would be quite annoying. Now, when we're done with our stitching, after we've gone all the way around, I'm going to mention that our stitching should be evenly spaced. It should be about a 1/4 inch apart. I'm going to take the thread from my beaded track, and I'm going to take the thread from my stitching. So we should have about, I would say, 3 inches, a 3-inch tail for each one of those, for our stitching and for our beaded track. We are going to tie these two together. Obviously, we're going to make sure that we're not getting any of the client's hair in there. We're going to tie these 2 threads together, and then we are going to glue them. So we're going to tie these together, and then we're going to do just a little dab of glue. A little dab of glue goes a long way. So be sure not to overuse the glue. People do have a sensitivity to the glue, so that doesn't matter. So then we're done. We ended our section. We're done with our stitching. We do a little dab of glue, and we're good to go.